Welcome back to the inside of Erica, where today I have something of a different video. Somebody asked in a comment a while ago if I could record a trip that we make in Erica to see her in use. And whilst I am most certainly not a travel vlogger and I have no intentions of becoming a travel vlogger, I thought I'd see what I could put together, and the answer is there's a good reason why I'm not going to become a travel vlogger, as you'll see if you watch this video. Although I do acknowledge that with a little bit more thought and planning, this could have been a whole lot better. But what we have here is a trip we made to the Lake District a couple of weeks ago. The intention was that I was going to run a route the first day, Mick was going to run the second day. We both had a little bit of a run on the third day, and we were driving support for each other. We stayed on campsites for the entirety of the trip, as I will mention in the footage, and we had a good time. So here is what I recorded. We're heading off to the Lake District for a few days, so let the packing commence. I need to fit the contents of those 2 crates and this stuff we've got along here under the bed and in those cupboards. And the best way I found to go about packing is to take the sofa cushions off the sofa and put them on top of the kitchen where they will sit whilst I lift up the lid of the sofa to put stuff away. I learnt last year, not long after we'd built Erica, that it's really important when you lift up the lid of the sofa that you don't just let it balance there, but you actually manoeuvre the position of the front seat so that it is holding this back into place so it can't fall down, because otherwise you're in danger of doing some damage to the sofa, as I did. Anyway, under the sofa we keep the bedding under here amongst other things, so because we're going to be on a campsite for this trip, we've got the mains hookup cable, we've got a fan heater there. Now previously we have taken a proper duvet, the one that we'd usually use in our motorhome, which is only summer weight, but it's quite, well, duvets, double duvets are quite bulky. So what we're taking on this occasion is our heavier backpacking quilt. It's a homemade thing using a Ray Jardine pattern, and it zips across the middle, and half of it is in that bag and half of it in that bag. That's our pyjamas. And then at the moment we've got a whole lot of empty space under here and our running backpacks. And there we have it. Erica is packed. We have added on 2 of these little stow holder thingies, which are handily carrying rags, gloves, spare maps, and the soap dispenser is nicely held there next to the sink. The food cupboard is crammed to bursting. As you can see, there's an awful lot of snacks in there. There's some cakes in at the back. The toiletries are on the left. Quite a lot of stuff in there. There's quite a few canned goods down under the pasta there. The pasta I've cooked and dehydrated, so all we have to do is rehydrate it. In this cupboard, again, crammed quite full. This is the cooking cupboard really. There's a kettle down there, there's a couple of mugs, there's lots of different tubs of tea bags of different flavours. This one contains the ground coffee. And up there around the corner is the espresso coffee pot. We've got a saucepan and a frying pan behind there. We've got plates and bowls and an insulated food container. That's the red thing at the back is the chopping board. Over in this cupboard, the toilet roll, the smoke alarm, some measuring cups, a head torch. This placemat here goes on the side to protect the work surface when we park, and just some loose cutlery and implements under there. Swinging round under the bed, you already saw this from above, we've now crammed a few other things in there. There's still actually quite a bit of space under there, and that's probably not a particularly useful shot, but yeah, lots of stuff under there. You may be able to see on the front seat there's a collapsible crate that can travel here. Can go in the front when we're parked, and that will just contain loose stuff, running gear that we're going to be using that day, spare shoes, that sort of thing. but otherwise we are clutter free. That will not last. Up above the cab, that's the storage area above the cab, we've got lots of stuff sacks. That's where all our clothes are. And over at the right, those white things there, that's the front window blinds. We try to use oversized stuff sacks with not a lot in so that they'll cram into the spaces. And then on the left we've got the towels, 2 big bath sheet size travel towels, tea towel, spare hand towel. And down behind the driver's seat, between the driver's seat and the sofa, we've got a clipboard containing crosswords, a little bit of foam that has various purposes, road atlas, a dustpan brush, and this is a long handled scraper. I'm hoping we're not going to have to be scraping the windscreen at this time of year, but we will leave that in here anyway. Here's Erica, settled onto a pitch at a little 5-fan campsite at a farm just to the west of Penrith. We've opted for campsites for all 3 nights of this trip, which does give the advantage, as you can see just there, that we are hooked up to the electric. And we've chosen to come here just for tonight. We'll be leaving very early in the morning and heading over to Pooley Bridge, where Mick will be dropping me off and I will be running south through the lakes. We've just had our evening meal and I can sit on the sofa and reach the sink to do the dishes whilst Mick sits over there and dries them, and there they all are waiting for me to put them away. This item, by the way, we use in our motorhome as well, and it is absolutely brilliant. It is an insulated pot. We boil up some water, put rice or pasta in there, and whilst we're preparing the rest of the meal, it cooks itself. Because we've got electric on this trip, there's the hookup that comes in through the gap between the old ramp. Because we've got hookup on this trip, we thought, even though it takes up some room, we will bring the electric kettle with us. Our motorhome is European, it has European plugs, and I completely failed to think about that. So rather uselessly, we have a kettle with us that has a European plug on it, and we have a hookup which has got British 3-pin plugs, so we can't actually use the electric kettle, which is something of an annoyance. Over in the corner there, sitting very nicely in that space, as if we designed it that way, is the cool box. That's the corner behind the toilet and next to the sofa. And before the trip, and this is our intention for all of our Erica trips, I cooked and froze a number of meals. They will defrost over the course of the 3 days, and they'll remain nice and fresh for us to eat without actually having to do any cooking. Nice fresh meals, but without having to do the cooking in Erica. The other use for this container is making my porridge of a morning. So I put my half a cup of porridge oats in there, some sultana, some chia seeds. In the morning I just pop in some hot water, screw the insulated lid on, and 10 minutes or so later I have some porridge to eat. And just for the avoidance of doubt, Mick is here too. After a good night's sleep, we were up at 5 the next morning. A few minutes later it started raining, which was disappointing given the forecast, but regardless, Mick dropped me off as planned at Pooley Bridge and I set out on my route. I didn't think to record anything as I ascended the first incline, then dropped down to Howtown before heading up Fusedale. By now the first rain of the day had stopped, but as you'll see and hear, it was a bit damp underfoot. I'm heading up Fusedale. That's Ullswater behind me, if you can see the water down there. And this path, it's a grassy path, and it's rather significantly wetter than it was last time I was here on the 12th of April, when we were going through rather a dry spell. And where I'm heading is up there. As I left Pooley Bridge, Mick drove Erica round to the end of Haweswater to meet me for what I called lunch, even though it wasn't yet 10:30 a.m. It was a well-timed break, as it kept me out the rain for half an hour, although I did then have to steel myself to head back out into the wet, which persisted until I reached the top of Gatesgarth Pass. As you'll see, by the time I nipped over the next rise and made it to Garburn Pass, the weather had finally perked up. I'm 35 kilometres in, and just heading over the final pass of the day, Garburn Pass. It's a really stony track. There we go, Garburn Pass. Awful stoniness to walk over, but if we look down there, absolutely gorgeous. That's where I've come from. There's Erica sitting down there, just coming to the end of my run. So that's coming up to 39 kilometres, 6 hours 10 minutes, and that's involved 1700 metres of ascent. Feeling really good, so buoyed by the success of that run. Did the same thing on the 12th of April, certainly didn't feel this good by the end. I'd be happy to carry on, but I should be getting back to Erica to find that Mick isn't there, because he is running further south and I'm now going to go and pick him up. I could have driven Erica to somewhere that looked vaguely like we were on a campsite and pretended that I recorded stuff at the time, but it might have been quite obvious because my hair has changed colour somewhat, and very temporarily, in the intervening period. So I'll just tell you that what happened next is we drove down to Coniston Park Coppice Caravan Club site, and it's a pity I have no footage of when we arrived there because there weren't many pitches left, even though it's a big 250 odd pitch site. And we had quite some fun finding a pitch that was level enough for Erica, bearing in mind that we haven't yet actually sorted out any levelling blocks for her, and also within 15 metres of an electric hookup point, because electric is included, so we thought we may as well use some of it, but Erica's electric cable is only 15 metres long. So a little bit of fun and games there, but we did get all pitched up, and here is a photo of Erica on her pitch. I'm just sitting in the car park at Tilberthwaite. Today it's Mick's turn to run and my turn to support. So I dropped him off at Ambleside this morning, drove round to Tilberthwaite, where I had my breakfast, the beauty of having a car that's got a kitchen in it and a sofa. Had my breakfast and then ran out to meet Mick and turned round, came back with him, and I've just rustled him up some lunch. He's just had a fried egg sandwich and he's just trotted off to continue on to Coniston, and I will drive round to meet him. And one of the reasons that we wanted a vehicle like this was for just this sort of scenario that when you're out for a run, I mean the weather's actually nice today, but you know, particularly when it's a miserable day, it's just nice to be able to jump in a vehicle, have something hot. He had a nice hot cup of tea with that, and be sheltered before you head back out. Likewise, at the end of a run, it's nice to jump in and be able to get changed. So, handy little thing is Erica. We are enjoying having her, and she's small enough that it's not a concern that this is a tiny little road to get here, and I'm now going to go and tackle that again in the other direction. We finished day 3 with another quiet night at the campsite, finishing the final set of meals that I'd put into Erica's cool box, which were now fully defrosted. And we then got up again reasonably bright and early the following morning just to fit in one more run before we made tracks away from the campsite to go and see various people on our way home. Good morning. It is a bright and sunny day, as you may be able to see behind me, and I'm just perching on the edge of the bed to make breakfast. Kettle is on the stove. I was organised enough to get out everything we needed to make breakfast last night and leave it sitting on the side, which we're happy to do because we're at a campsite. If we're not at a campsite, we always put everything away so that we can make a quick escape in the night if we need to. And the bed is still out. There is Mick lying in it. You may notice the jumper over the back of the seat. That has a practical purpose. Because I haven't got a pocket on that side of the bed, that jumper pocket is currently giving a place to put phone and earphones overnight in case I wake up and feel the need to listen to a bit of audiobook. And this is the quilt we've been using. It zips across the middle to form 2 different pieces. This is a quilt I made for backpacking a few years ago. We really liked it, but it was just too heavy for our general use, so I made another version in lighter weight materials. This one's got 5 centimetres of loft and is good to about -5, perhaps a little bit lower degrees. So it is a bit warm for using in Erica, but as you saw when I was packing, the benefit is that it is very small and light for Erica purposes. It's much smaller than a duvet. So we will probably persist in using that. One other thing you may be able to see behind me, and Nick will probably point in a moment when he knows what I'm talking about, is that we commented a while ago, just very much in passing in a video, that the problem with how we've done the curtains on the front doors is that they of course hang vertical, and once you draw them at night they gape away from the window. The current solution to that, before I adopt a more permanent solution, is we've got some absolutely tiny magnets, and they are just placed to hold the curtain against the window. There you go, there's one there, one there, one there, and we've done the same on the other side. Right, kettle is making, getting towards boiling noises, so it is time for breakfast. Bit more water required. As for condensation, as you can see, that window there is quite condensated this morning, because whilst it is the end of May, we are still having really quite cool nights for the time of year, and there's a lot of breathing going on here. And of course I do now also have kettle and cups of tea belching moisture out into the atmosphere. The rear window, not condensated because we already have the sun hitting that, even though it's only 7 o'clock in the morning. And there, rather abruptly, ended my contemporaneous footage, so I'll just jump back to the post-trip narrative to tell you that after breakfast we just did a circuit of Torver to Coniston, a lap and a half, back to the campsite along the lakeside path, and using the old railway line for that morning exercise. It was a lovely morning. The weather had finally come good for the end of the trip, so whereas 2 days before I'd been running along wearing 2 jackets and gloves and thinking this is ridiculous for the end of May, it was nice and warm on the Thursday, and just in time for us to go home. But on the plus side, we weren't caught up in any of the traffic for the upcoming weekend because there were a lot of cars heading into the Lake District as we left. So all in all, a very successful trip, with Erica providing us with good comfortable accommodation, doing everything we needed from her, being agile enough to nip down tiny lanes, being comfortable enough to provide us with accommodation at night, all very practical and lovely. And so we're looking forward to many more trips in her.